Today, we're going to be reading and speaking about two poems. Both of them are concerned with the word kind, and it would be worthwhile at this point to stop the video and make sure you've read the poem, which is on the YouTube. Right below the video, you'll find the poem. You'll find both poems, and you'll note that I have marked the lines in the poem Be Kind by Michael Blumenthal, and that will be relevant to a few things we're going to say about the poem. Be Kind by Michael Blumenthal. Not merely because Henry James said there were but four rules of life: be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind, but because it's good for the soul and, what's more, for others. It may be that kindness is our best audition for a worthier world, and despite the vagueness and uncertainty of its recompense, a bird may yet wander into a bush before our very houses. Gratitude may not manifest itself in deeds entirely equal to our own. Still, there's weather arriving from every direction. The feasts of famine and feasts of plenty may yet prove to be one. So why not allow the little sacrificial squinches and squigulas to prevail? Why not inundate the particular world with minute particulars? Dust's certainly all our fate. So why not make it the happiest possible dust, a dratitis of blessedness? Surely the hedgehog, furling and unfurling into its spiked little ball, knows something that, with gentle touch and unthreatening tone, can inure to our benefit. Surely the wicked witches of our childhood have died, and from where they are buried, a great kindness has eclipsed their misdeeds. Yes, of course, in the end, so much comes down to privilege and its various penumbras, but too much of our unruly animus has already been wasted on reprisals. Too much of the unblessed air is filled with smoke from undignified fires. Oh, friends, take whatever kindness you can find and be profligate in its expenditure. It will not drain your limited resources, I assure you. It will not leave you vulnerable and unfurled, with only your sweet little claws to defend yourselves, and your wet little noses, and your eyes to the ground, and your little feet. Before commenting on this poem, I'd like to point out that this is what I'm about to say is much inspired by Henry James saying, be kind, be kind, be kind, as Fred Rogers, or Mr. Rogers, who constantly told a generation of children growing up, among them my children, be kind. And this was further inspired by an address of Rav Yirmi Stavisky, the the head of Himmelfarb High School for boys in Yerushalayim, in a video address that he gave to the students some time ago, in which he spoke about the kindness of Mr. Rogers to a young child who was Yirmi Stavisky when he was a child. The rules of life. When we talk about rules of life, okay, which the poet mentions, not merely because Henry James said there were but four rules of life. When we speak about rules of life, we usually think of the mitzvot, which are our rules of life. And we think of 613 mitzvot, but there is a very interesting parallel to the idea of 613 mitzvos. This idea of 613 mitzvos is formulated by Rabbi Simlai in the Gemara in Makot Daf Chav Gimel, who says that the Torah is composed of 613 mitzvos. And this very same Rabbi Simlai tells us in the Gemara in Sota on Daf Yudalet on page 14, Rabbi Simlai tells us that the Torah begins with acts of loving kindness and ends with acts of loving kindness. The beginning of the act of loving kindness are God clothing man after man had disobeyed God, had insulted God, if you will, by eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge and realized, perhaps not ultimate knowledge, but realized that he was indeed naked and was ashamed and hid in the garden. And nonetheless, despite the fact that he brought this shame upon himself, God gave him clothes, God clothed him. And of course, the Torah ends with an act of loving kindness on God's part. And that act of loving kindness is that God buries Moses, buries Moshe, and that's the last moment of the Torah. We begin with loving kindness and end with loving kindness. I believe that it's the Kotzker Rebbe who says that it begins and ends with, because the beginning and the end tells you about what's in the book. Or if I can paraphrase, if you don't read the whole book, but you read the introduction, the foreword, and the epilogue, you'll probably know more or less what the book is about. And the book of Torah, the Sefer Torah, is a Torah chesed. It is a Torah of loving kindness. The Torah chesed al lashona. The woman of valor speaks the Torah of loving kindness. Now, as we go on in the poem, on lines 4 and 5, the poet tells us, well, these 4 rules is not merely because Henry James said, but because it's good for the soul, and what's more for others. It may be that kindness is our best audition for a worthier world. We are told that kindness in Jewish philosophy, especially the Rambam, it's not merely doing good, but being good. Kindness is good for our souls, as God is called Rachum, Af atah hayeh Rachum. So the Rambam formulates it following the Sifrei. So you too not only do good, but you must be good. So there is a goodness for others, expressing our love for the other, and there is a goodness for our soul. We become godlike in becoming merciful and becoming kind. And this is in line 6, our best audition for a worthier world. Because after all, as the rabbis tell us in Pirkei Avot, this world is merely the antechamber. If you will, heaven, Olam Haba, that's where the play is fully acted out, if you will. But the auditions that take place in Boston and New Haven are in this world. And we better get the audition right if we want to open on Broadway. This world is a prose door, is the antechamber. And as we are doing in this world, we may experience an act, perhaps an unintended, after all, it's an act of a bird. In line 11, gratitude may not manifest itself in deeds entirely equal to our own, right? Because what? In line 9, a bird may yet wander into a bush before our very houses And we will be grateful for that. Gratitude, how difficult that is. To express gratitude and sometimes to feel gratitude. This is the whole world gratitude of brachot. The reason we make a bracha for the fact that we were able to get up in the morning, for the fact that we stood up, for the fact that we were able to see and hear and do, for the fact that we ate a piece of bread or drank a cup of coffee this morning. We make a bracha. To be human is to live with gratitude. To be a mere animal is to live not with gratitude, but taking everything for granted. Animals don't make brachot. Why not inundate, the poet says? Why not inundate, in line 18, why not inundate the particular world with minute particulars? Here, the reference is to the line in William Blake, to see the holiness of the minute particular. The one thing that's important in the world is that everything is capable of holiness. And we are capable of bringing holiness into the world. Why not inundate the particular world? Why not be kind and inundate the particular world with minute particulars? And these minute particulars are particularities of holiness. And the bird, of course, the bird that appears in the garden, it's about the bird gives us hope of something better, of something fine. And the reference, if there's a reference, is to hope is a thing with feathers of Emily Dickinson. Surely the hedgehog appears in line 22 and appears again at the end of the poem. What the poet has in mind is a line from a Greek poet that is amplified in an essay by Isaiah Berlin on the difference between the fox and the hedgehog. The fox sees many things, but the hedgehog knows one thing, and knows one thing very, very well. And that one thing for the poet in this poem, for Henry James, is Mr. Rogers, be kind, be kind, be kind. Whatever you do, whatever you meet in life, meet it with a great kindness. And we know so much comes down to privilege, but really, what's the point? Oh, friends, line 34, take whatever kindness you can find and be profligate in its expenditure. It's what you can spend of yourself that will not drain your limited resources. I assure you it will not leave you vulnerable and unfurled. It's not going to leave you unprotected. It is what is going to protect you. It is what is going to give meaning and wonder to your life. Let me add a story. The Gemara tells us in Ta'anit, Daf Chaf, page 20, where it tells us the story of Rabbi Elazar ben Reb Shimon, who is returning from having learned much Torah, and he's on a donkey and he sees a person who is so ugly that he can't help himself, and he says, tell me, right? Is everybody from your town, is everybody from your city as ugly as you are? And the ugly man, whom Tosfot notes, may well be Eliyahu Hanavi, sent to give Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar a lesson. The ugly man says, I don't know, but I can tell you, ask the Creator who made me. And Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar comes down from the donkey that he's riding on and begs forgiveness. Please, please, find the story in Ta'anit Chaf Amid Aleph, page 20a, and read the story through to the end. The lessons: we can know much, but if we don't know kindness, we can do much, but if we don't do kindness, then we have not known much, and we have not known kindness. And here, the words echoed in my mind as I was thinking about this. And I want, and it's down below also, another poem, a 6-line poem, this kind by W.H. Auden. It's called Epitaph on a Tyrant. Probably, it was written in the 1930s, and Auden was in Berlin in the 1930s, probably around 1939, and probably it's about Hitler, Yimach Shemo. Epitaph on a Tyrant. Perfection of a kind was what he was after. And the poetry he invented was easy to understand. He knew human frailty like the back of his hand, and he was greatly interested in armies and fleets. When he laughed, respectable senators burst with laughter. And when he cried, the little children died in the streets. And when he cried, the little children died in the streets. And when you read this poem, you see the word kind, and it strikes you right away. Perfection of a kind was what he was after. It's not our kind, not our kindness, but it's perfection. There is a perfection of good, and if I could say it, there's a perfection of evil. And that's what the tyrants, are after. And the poetry he invented. Who invents poetry? Invent? But the word invent, Auden shows, it's the falsification of poetry. It's the falsification of language. It's the lie become truth. The poetry he invented, yes, it's easy to understand. We know where this is going. And where is it going? Where is cruelty and the falsification of language and the falsification of kindness? Where is it going? It's going to a moment in which respectable senators will burst with laughter, in which the little children will die in the streets.